Yeah, so Tamara, you asked earlier, where do we need more grace in our business? And on our call yesterday, you said the word trailblazer. And I just like God gave me this revelation. Like when you're a trailblazer, you're doing something that's never been done before. You're literally blazing a trail where there wasn't one. And so where I lack grace in my business is realizing that what I'm building has never been built before. What I'm doing has never been done before. And it's like the enemy puts this pressure on me that I should know how to do all this stuff, that I should have everything planned out, that I should know what's around every corner. And so I literally spend 90% of my time planning and percent doing. And then I look at everything and I'm like, why haven't I accomplished anything? And taking this rest for the last 3 weeks has really opened my mind to see that I spend 90% of my planning, learning, strategizing, and 10% acting, which is not faith at all. It's like when you're trailblazing, you don't know what's around the corner, but you still walk towards it. You don't sit down and like, oh, there's a corner. Let me sit and plan what could be around that corner for 3 weeks. Like you actually do, you blaze the trail. And so when you said that yesterday, that there's trailblazing, like, and then you asked, where do we need more grace? It's like, I need more grace in myself to understand that I'm not going to have all the answers. And just because I don't know what's around the corner doesn't mean that I don't go around the corner. And so that's been a huge, massive breakthrough is that I need to stop learning and start acting. Like stop trying to acquire knowledge and start taking action. And it's in the action that I'm going to learn. How will I ever know what's around the corner if I don't walk around it? And so realizing that it's okay, Chris, for you to not know things. It's okay for you to not understand things. It's okay for you to not have your whole brand planned out and your messaging planned out before you launch this out into the world. And it's just one step at a time, one step at a time, one step at a time. When I lived in Nepal, there were all these people who trekked for Mount Everest because that's where Mount Everest is. And people would always say, how do you climb Mount Everest? One step at a time. It's just one action at a time, one action at a time, one action at a time. And so realizing that I need to have grace, that it's okay to not know, and not knowing but taking action anyway is true faith. Faith without works is dead. And so it's just been a huge breakthrough. It's taken me 3 weeks to get my mind to a calm enough place to actually see what I've been doing because I've just been in this cycle of learning and learning and learning and very little doing. And I feel like since COVID, all the gurus and all the, personal development people have put out all this, it's the knowledge-based business where you got to learn this and then you got to learn this. And so what I've seen with clients is they spend most of their time learning and very little time doing so they don't get any results. And I've been doing the same thing. But when I take action, man, the way that God blesses it is crazy. Like it's so crazy because I was in December or in November, I was planning to launch a group coaching program in January. And I was going to build a landing page and a sales page and an email campaign and a social media marketing campaign. I was going to build all this stuff, right? All the things I've learned. And I started working on it for the first week and was exhausted already because I hate writing copy. I hate doing all these things. And I was exhausted. And it was just like, I can't launch anything unless I like get this out. And then at FounderCon, I walked past Pastor Andrew, and God said, "Introduce yourself." I didn't, and then I walked past him again. God said, "Introduce yourself." I introduced myself, and then in December we had lunch, and we decided to launch the Find Your Calling for his church. And now we launched it in January, and 200 people have signed up for it. And so it's like my ultimate goal was to have like 20 people in a group coaching program in January. That would have been ideal. God was like, no, here's 200. And it's the action that led to it. It wasn't the planning, it wasn't the strategy. And the really hard thing that I'm learning right now is that action is what's going to teach me, not learning. Like, I think the more knowledge I get, the more wisdom I get, the more things I read, the more things I study, the more courses I take, that's what's actually going to give me knowledge and wisdom. But it's not, it's action that is going to give me the knowledge and wisdom because after doing this 7 week course, today's the last, or this week is the last week of the 7 week course. I have learned infinitely more about what I do, the program I offer, the framework God has given me than I would have ever learned sitting around and planning for 7 weeks. And so, as a trailblazer, I feel like we need to give ourselves grace that you don't know what you're doing, you don't know where you're going, you don't know how to get there, but it's not your job to know, it's your job to take action. And the reality is that God will use all things for good. So, if you go and you make the wrong turn, He will correct you and you'll learn something from it, but then you'll blaze a trail the other way. And that is the scariest thing for me because that's what I realized that's true faith. I've had more faith in my knowledge of the world than I have in the Lord. And that has just like rocked me. And it's scary to me, like to just take action without knowing and without having a strategic plan and all of that. Because, but what it does is it opens the door for God to show up because I don't have the answers. So I have to take action where it's like, Lord, I don't know the answers. And every single time He has given me wisdom that is so much better than anything I could have read or planned. And so that's where I need the grace. And I feel like after this 7 weeks of rest, I finally came out of this hypnosis that I was in of just like learning, planning, and a little bit of action. And so I need to completely shift it to 90% action, 10% planning, and trust that the Lord's promises are true. So,
I read a
yeah,
book one time,
crazy
Chris.
breakthrough for me.
I read a book one time and it said, lean not on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him and he will make straight your paths. No, two things real quick.
Can you
This
put
is
that
in
in the
alignment
chat so
with
I can
what
get it on Amazon?
yeah, I'll send you a copy.
And the
Um,
author?
yeah, it's very well known. Um, I'll give you two things. It's in alignment with what Jesus did with the disciples. He didn't tell them to go to the tabernacle and learn like everybody else was doing. He said, "Let's go." When you blaze trails, action is required. You're going to learn on those steps. Every step is a learning moment, and I think that comes back. He's making straight your paths. That's where that understanding and that faith comes. But the second thing is one thing I had to learn in being right there with you as a pioneer. Um, Rest is required as a pioneer because if there's one thing when you're walking into places you don't know, the one thing you have to have about you is your senses. And if you're constantly exhausted walking into new places, the enemy will take advantage of that place. You're going to walk around a corner and there's going to be a lion right there that you weren't prepared for. When you walk into those territories that have been untethered, uncared for, you have to have your senses about you. So that's what God's trying to teach you in this season is the importance of this rest in your trailblazing. Because when you take those actions, you have to have your sense about you. Is this you or is this God? Is this what I've seen done, or is God telling me to do this? Being so in tune with Him because it's in that tired state, it's in that place of just getting busy that you'll miss those moments and you miss that alignment. That's what He has to get you to. If you're blazing a trail and it's a path He's already made for you because He has, then you have to be in alignment with Him to take every step. And then if you get off path, you're like, you know what? This doesn't seem right. Okay, got to get back. Those rest moments are going to be that. They're going to be course corrections. They're going to be getting your senses ready for the next big steps you're taking. Um, because no one else can do it. You can't go off a book and say, oh, yeah, do this, this, and this, and you'll be good. You're taking first steps. So documenting that, walking through that, when somebody goes through it, it's going to be pretty interesting to step back and look at where you've come, but being intentional those rest moments to whatever big steps are ahead.